Here we go. Humanities 101 and NACHOS reminds you that you are enough. Now we join Dr. Dutch with the Neuro-Affirming Conversation Hour for outreach and support.
Welcome back, Nacho Not students and people who are joining us for the very first time. Welcome to Nachos, the Neuro-Affirming Conversation Hour for outreach and support. Today, we're celebrating a delightfully quirky holiday with a surprisingly deep lesson. It's National Ampersand Day. Yes, that little curved symbol that has its very own day, every September 8th. And when we look at its history and its meaning, it feels like a perfect companion to the spirit of this show. The ampersand began as shorthand for the Latin word et, meaning and if you look closely, you can still trace the faint outlines of an E and a T stitched together. Over centuries, scribes, printers, and designers made it flourish until it became one of the most recognizable symbols in our written language. For a time, it was even considered the 27th letter of the English alphabet. Children would chant their ABCs all the way to X, Y, and Z, and per se, ampersand. Spoken quickly, that last phrase blurred into what we now call ampersand. X, Y, Z, and per se, and. But what I love most isn't just its history, it's the meaning tucked inside. The ampersand is a connector. It takes two separate things and binds them together. It refuses the starkness of either or and insists on both and. And that's powerful because so much of the world tries to force us into binaries. Are you strong or are you vulnerable? Are you successful or are you struggling? Are you neurodivergent or are you thriving? The ampersand interrupts that rigid thinking. It says you are strong and vulnerable, successful and still finding your way, neurodivergent and thriving. Some people even see the ampersand as a broken infinity symbol, a sideways figure eight that's been cracked open. To me, that makes it even more human. It isn't perfect or seamless, but it's still infinite in what it holds. And that's a reminder that our lives don't have to be pristine to be meaningful. Our wholeness is found in the cracks and the connections, in the ands that stitch our stories together. Now, singer and songwriter Amanda Palmer, known for her work with the Dresden Dolls, once said, "I'm not going to live my life on one side of an ampersand." She's inviting us to step into a space where the and lives, to resist being flattened into a single story, to live on both sides at once, embracing complexity, contradiction, and fullness. And that, my dear Nacho Knots, is what Nachos is all about. We live in the and. Between burnout and balance, between isolation and community, between who we were told we should be and who we are becoming. The ampersand is more than punctuation. It's a philosophy of belonging. It's a symbol of integration, not a symbol of division. So as we celebrate National Ampersand Day, I want you to think about your own ands. Where in your life do you need to let go of the either or and make room for the both and? Because when we live in the and, we live in a place where wholeness, humanity, and hope can take root. The ampersand reminds us that life is rarely one-sided. And that lesson feels especially alive when I think about our new Humanities 101 students. Many of them are coming in with excitement, yes, but also with a flair or with a fair amount of a flair for the nervous and the anxious. And I understand that nervous and anxious energy. I've heard questions like, will I fit in here? Can I keep up? Is it okay to admit that I don't understand? I've heard those for 25 years. These questions aren't a reflection of students being unprepared or unwilling. They're often the result of institutions that haven't been fully accessible. When systems aren't built with students in mind, when the rules feel unclear, the expectations confusing, or the resources hard to find, it creates a kind of background hum of anxiety. And that anxiety doesn't just stay in the classroom, it follows students into the future. There's research to back this up. A recent study of the university students shows that when students feel resilient, able to adapt and recover from setbacks, they carry far less fear about what's ahead. Just as importantly, when they experience well being, when they feel supported, satisfied, and like they belong, that well being becomes the bridge that actually lowers future anxiety. In other words, resilience and well being are not just nice to have, they're protective. They change how the future feels and how we experience it. But here's the problem: when institutions fail to meet students where they are, they unintentionally chip away at both resilience and well being. Instead of leaving class feeling more confident, students may walk away wondering if they'll ever, if they even belong, or if in the future they'll ever feel certain of where they belong. And that's exactly where the ampersand speaks back. Because no student is just anxious or falling behind. They are anxious and resourceful. They're struggling and strong. They're worried and hopeful. The ampersand invites us to live in that both and space, to hold challenge and, or to both challenge and support each other, to honor both the doubt and the desire that students bring into the room. And when we as educators and peers begin to design classrooms and spaces that reflect the ampersand, that provide both clarity and compassion, structure and flexibility, we start to transform the background hum of anxiety into something steadier, something more sustainable. We create spaces where resilience can grow and where well-being is not an afterthought, but a foundation. So as I think about this new semester, I see ampersands everywhere, in the tension between questions and answers, in the balance between fear and possibility, in the way students carry both uncertainty and strength at once. And that, my nacho knots, is why the ampersand belongs not just in our language, but in our learning. And that brings me back to the classroom. If the ampersand reminds us that our lives are lived in the both and, then our coursework should reflect that too. Not just tests and essays for a grade, but opportunities to take what we're learning and connect it to the bigger world. And that's exactly the spirit behind our midterm project in Humanities 101. Instead of only writing for me or only completing something that sits in a binder, I want you to think about this project as your chance to live out the ampersand. It's both an academic assignment and an opportunity to create something with real world impact. The midterm invites you to identify a barrier, some moment of inaccessibility you've noticed in your own life, on campus, or in the broader community, and then design a micro accommodation that could help address that situation. It doesn't have to be huge. In fact, sometimes the smallest innovations make the biggest difference. And here's where the and really shines. Your project won't just be for class. This year, we're connecting the midterm to something larger, the Micro-Accommodation Innovation Challenge at the Michigan Disability Empowerment Conference, happening October 24th in Dearborn. And that means if you want to, you can take your midterm project, polish it, and submit it alongside advocates, designers, and community leaders from across the state. Your ideas don't just have to stay in the classroom. They can become part of a statewide conversation on accessibility and inclusion. Now imagine that, a class project that earns you credit and has a chance to spark change. A midterm that's both demonstrating your learning and amplifying your voice. That's the ampersand at work, showing us that we don't have to choose between school and the real world. We can bring them together. And so let's talk about this project. You already have the assignment details in the Google Classroom, but I kind of want to go deeper because it's not just about what this project is, but it's why this project is that matters and why you should seriously think bigger than just turning it into me. At its heart, this project is about exploring micro-accommodations. And micro-accommodations are those small intentional changes that can make the world more inclusive. We know from our course readings that society wasn't designed with everyone in mind. Our course text, and you should be reading chapters 1 and 2 right now, tell us this. The structures we live and learn in often leave people out, sometimes quietly, often loudly. A micro-accommodation asks us to look at those barriers and imagine what's one simple, doable thing that would make life easier, fairer, and more welcoming. Think about impacting 300 or more people for less than $300. For your midterm, you technically have two options. You can write an essay of 3,000 or more words, or you can create a video that's 3 to 5 minutes long. Both of those formats follow the same simple steps. You identify a challenge. You look at the everyday world. You look at campus. You look at your job place. You look at public spaces. You look at where inclusivity and belonging is breaking down. And then you analyze it. Why is it not fully accessible or fair? And what's the impact to the humans involved? And then after you've answered those questions, propose a micro-accommodation, a simple, low-cost creative fix that could change the experience for multiple people. And then I want you to either write or create a video about it. But if you decide differently, you can create and communicate in a different way. So then you create this project. And I want you to communicate both the problem and the solution clearly, whether this be in writing or in video. And if you just want credit for the class, fine. Do the paper, do the video, submit it, and get the grade. But if you stop there, you'll miss something bigger. Because again, you can submit this to the MDEC for a very short conference that's happening on October 24th at the University of Michigan Dearborn's Fairlane Center, right? This is on Hubbard Drive, right across from our campus. And when you submit this, you don't just bring a paper or a polished video. All you need if you decide to submit your midterm as a poster presentation is a poster, a visual representation of your idea. And not everyone can do this. There are limited spots. There are going to be about a dozen spots open. I'm going to make a registration form available in our Google Classroom where you or your team members can sign up to be a part of this. And then this will tell me that I shouldn't expect a poster from you. I shouldn't expect a paper from you or a video from you, because you're going to be there on the 24th at the conference presenting as a presenter. So this is not just something that will be for classwork, but this is something that can go on your resume. So all you need to do in this poster is present a visual representation of your idea. The poster should show three things: the community you're focusing on, the barrier you've identified, and the micro-accommodation you're proposing. That's it. You'll stand beside other students, other learners, designers, and advocates, and you'll get to present your idea in person, kind of science fair style, as we walk around and talk with you about your ideas, ask you questions, and discuss your ideas with you. And yes, there are going to be prizes for the most creative and the most impactful projects. So let me paint a picture. You could be the student who suggests replacing round doorknobs with lever handles, making life easier for someone with limited hand strength, or just someone juggling a backpack or a pack of coffee. You could propose free menstrual products in campus bathrooms, a small, inexpensive way with huge payoff for dignity and equality. Or you might even suggest a group project rule where everyone rotates roles, so no one is always the note taker. I'm an English teacher. I was always the note taker. Because, again, there are bias and assumptions in who usually is the note taker or the leader or the parliamentarian. Each of these is a small, simple, and achievable step towards a more inclusive future. But each one of these has the ultimate power to shift someone's daily experience and make them feel more welcome on this earth. So, Nacho Knots, ask yourself, do you want your midterm to just sit in a Google Classroom until the semester ends? Or do you want someone to walk onto the campus of the University of Michigan Dearborn in October, stand beside other leaders and state thinkers, and say, here's my idea. Here's how I think the world could be more inclusive. That's learning in action. That's the ampersand at work again. You don't have to choose between doing schoolwork or making an impact. You can do both. You can get your grade and put your voice into the larger conversation with state leaders. And I'll be honest, I'd much rather see you at the MDEC standing in front of your poster, sharing your creativity with people who are eager to hear it, than just reading another stack of essays in my office. So if you've got the choice between a boring paper or video and the chance to join a statewide innovation challenge with prizes, recognition, and real-world impact, why wouldn't you take it? This is your chance to step into the and, to be a student and a change maker, to be a thinker and a designer, to do your midterm and leave your mark on the future of Michigan. One of the reasons I want you at the Michigan Disability Empowerment Conference is because it's not just about learning. It's about being part of a movement. And the schedule alone, right, tells us how rich this day is going to be. In the morning, there are going to be sessions you can choose from, presenters like Beth Hall in her workshop on ADHD and neurodivergence, where lived experience meets practical strategies. Or you might join Dr. John Michael Seffel from Henry Ford College as he breaks down accessibility myths that hold leaders back, which will challenge assumptions that keep organizations from truly being inclusive. And if storytelling is more your style, you can listen to Ian Flanagan and Jesse Lindenbauer as they introduce Kevin Can, a children's book that shows how narrative can shape young minds toward empathy and inclusion. There's also Audrey Scare's session, Am I Actually Autistic? A space that promises honesty, clarity, and community around questions of identity. Or you could step into a conversation led by Hall Nguyen Mills and Shamarat Rambakov on what it means to navigate higher education as an international student with a disability. That's the kind of perspective that widens the circle for all of us. And in the afternoon, you're going to hear from Wabe Nasabe in Beyond the Ramp, where he shares the lived experiences of a university student with spina bifida, offering insights into the real-world difference between what's written in policy and what happens in practice. Or you might join our friends from Diverge Community Services for an interactive workshop on energy, reminding us that empowerment also means caring for our bodies, our rhythms, and our health. And the cool thing about Diverge is they're also sponsoring our sensory break room. So if you want to see how a sensory room really is done, come to the conference. There's even a session on early childhood education led by Annie Hensler, showing how inclusion doesn't start in college or in the workplace. It begins when children are first learning about fairness, accessibility, and equity. But beyond these sessions themselves, what makes the MDEC powerful is who's in the room. You'll see local leaders, disability advocates, caregivers, educators, and policymakers. You'll meet self-advocates who've spent their lives fighting for inclusion and students who are just beginning to find their voice. All of these perspectives are coming together under one roof at the University of Michigan Dearborn's Fairlane Center South. And when great minds and lived experiences converge like this, new paths forward open up. That's what I want you to feel most, that you are stepping into a space where solutions are not handed down from the top, but imagined from the middle and the bottom, where people who carry the weight of barriers also carry the wisdom of how to remove them. This is where we begin to map out a future where every body and every mind can flourish. And that's not just the theme of the Innovation Challenge, it's the theme of the whole day. to come together, share what we know, honor what we've lived, and commit to building a Michigan and a world that works for us all. If all of this has you a little curious or even a little excited, I want to invite you to take the next step. The Michigan Disability Empowerment Conference is more than a date on a calendar. It's a space where community becomes real. And the best way to make sure that you're a part of this is to head over to humanities101.org/conference. That's humanities101.org/conference. There you'll find all the details about the schedule, accessibility features, and more importantly, how to register. Registering isn't just about saving your seat. It's about saying yes to being part of a conversation that matters. Whether you're a student, a caregiver, an educator, or someone still trying to find the right words for your experience, you belong in this space. And by registering, you're making a commitment to yourself and your community that your voice deserves to be heard and that your presence makes the world stronger. And students, remember, I will be posting the student code for you so that you can get free registration. It's only $5. So if you have $5, pay the $5. Help us cover some of the costs of this conference, because you are going to be fed. You are going to be entertained, educated, and you're going to walk away with not only the knowledge, but actual resources in hand to make the world a better place. So I also want to encourage you to consider donating. Putting on a conference of this scale, bringing together leaders, storytellers, advocates, and students takes resources. Every contribution, big or small, helps keep the MDEC accessible to as many people as possible. And that's why we're committed to a $5 registration fee for a statewide academic conference. That is ridiculous as far as a price. So your support doesn't just fund a single day, even though it will. It helps us build this momentum toward a Michigan where accessibility and empowerment aren't the default, or are the default. They're not just the exception. I want inclusivity and belonging to be a default in Michigan. I want the hand state, the mitten state, to be a waving state. So when you donate through humanities101.org/conference, you're fueling that vision. So I hope you'll join us by registering, by donating, or by spreading the word, because the Michigan Disability Empowerment Conference isn't just for them or for those people. It's for all of us. It's for everybody and every mind. It's one more chance to step into the ampersand, into the both and of learning and leading, receiving and giving, belonging and building a better future together. All of this, the ampersand, the Midterm Project, and the Michigan Disability Empowerment Conference points us towards the same truth. We are at our best when we resist either or thinking and embrace both and thinking. We're living in a time that tells us to pick sides, to dig in, and to divide. But the ampersand in the spirit of the MDEC calls us to build bridges instead, to open conversations rather than close them off. And that's why your participation matters so much, both in this class and in our collective community. When you engage, whether in writing and conversation or in showing up at events like the MDEC, you are helping shape a culture where every voice has value. Participation isn't about having all the answers. It's about showing up, listening, engaging, and being willing to imagine a better future together. So here's your weekly participation question. Where in your own life have you experienced an either or that could be transformed into a both and? In other words, where might building a bridge between identities, perspectives, or experiences, where would that have opened up new possibilities for you or for others? You can answer this in whatever way makes sense for you, as a personal reflection, as a story you've witnessed, or even as a simple idea you'd like to see in this world. The most important thing is that you think about how the spirit of the ampersand, of connectedness, of possibility, of wholeness, shows up in your journey. Because participation isn't just about points or a grade sheet, it's about practicing the art of being human together, learning how to listen across differences, how to imagine new solutions, and how to hold space for both and in a world that often demands either or. So again, where could you have embraced a both and when you had embraced an either or that would have made life better for you or other people? So at the heart of Nachos, we return again and again to a simple conviction. Your story matters, your presence matters, your needs matter. Whether we're talking about the ampersand, your midterm project, or the Michigan Disability Empowerment Conference, it all comes back to that truth. These are not just abstract ideas, they're invitations to live more fully, to claim space, and to see ourselves as part of something larger. The ampersand reminds us that we don't have to choose between identities, between strengths and struggles, between belonging and difference. We are both and. In the same way micro-accommodations show us that care doesn't always have to be huge or sweeping, sometimes it's the smallest change that allows someone else to breathe easier, to show up more fully, and to thrive. And the MDEC embodies that same ethic, bringing together great minds and lived experiences so that we can build bridges, not barriers. Nachos has always been about connection, about slowing down enough to honor our own needs while also making room for the needs of others, about affirming our neurodivergence as a strength, not a flaw, about holding on to self-care and self-worth even when the world tells us otherwise. Each of these stories, the ampersand, the students' questions, the conference, all fit into that bigger tapestry. So as we close today, I want you to see yourself in these themes. You are not just a student or a worker, not just thriving or struggling, not just one label or another. You are complex, layered, and whole. You contain multitudes. You are both and. And when we live that truth out loud in our classrooms, in our communities, in our state, we are building the kind of world that Nachos was made to imagine. So as we wrap today's episode, let's take a breath together. Place your feet on the ground. Notice your breath and remember, you don't have to live your life on one side of the ampersand. You are more than one thing. You're capable of holding complexity, of living in the both and. Carrying these affirmations with you into the week will help you remember that. I'm allowed to be both strong and vulnerable. I am both a work in progress and already enough as I am. I can experience both struggle and joy, sometimes even in the same moment. I am worthy of spaces that welcome all of who I am. I am part of a community that grows stronger when I show up as my full and real self. And remember, small changes matter. Just like the micro-accommodations we've been talking about, the small steps you take for yourself, resting, asking for help, showing up in your community, are powerful acts of self-care and resistance. If today's conversation sparked something for you, I hope it did. But I also hope that you'll join us at the Michigan Disability Empowerment Conference on October 24th. Now, again, this is happening at the University of Michigan Dearborn's Fairlane Center South on Hubbard Drive, and you can find all of the details on how to register or how to support the work by donating at humanities101.org/conference. Thank you for being part of this journey with us, Nacho Knots. If you found today's episode meaningful, I'd love for you to follow Nachos on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you tune in. Share it with a friend, leave a review, or join the conversation on our socials. Every time you do, you help this community grow and reach the people who need it most. So until next time, take care of yourselves in ways both small and profound. Whether that's giving yourself permission to rest, carving out a moment of joy, or daring to ask for what you truly need. Take care of each other by offering compassion, by listening deeply, and by remembering that the bridges we build between us are stronger than any walls meant to divide us. And above all, remember this: you are enough, not because of what you produce, not because of how perfectly you perform, but because of who you are at your core. You are worthy. You are worthy of love, worthy of access, worthy of spaces that honor your body, your mind, your story, and your being. And you belong. Not someday, not maybe, not when you've checked all the boxes, not when you've earned it. You belong right now, exactly as you are, in this community, in this world, in this moment. Carry that truth with you this week. When doubt whispers that you're not measuring up, answer back with the ampersand. I can be both uncertain and still valuable. I can be both learning and already whole. I can be both imperfect and deeply loved. Let these words settle into your bones. You are enough. You are worthy. You belong. Always. Always. So until next week, Nacho Knots, have a good one. And keep being you.